In this section, we're going to be breaking down each individual zone. This has been a pretty popular request, so we're going to we're not just going to break down the role of each zone, but we're going to kind of talk about what each zone can kind of defend as well. And again, that's going to be really important because you not only have to anticipate on defense what play call is coming, then you're going to have to know how to stop it. So having a fundamental, understanding of each zone is going to be critical to becoming a better defensive player. So let's start off in like a cover two. So we kind of talked about this throughout the course. So the deep halves in cover two, again, their main responsibility is going to be to guard fades along the sideline. Is again just going to guard this deep outside part of the field. So again, like fades, maybe like deep corner outs. And then the cloud flats, really what they're used for, they're going to be good for stopping, 10-yard corner outs. They're going to be decent against curls. They're going to be good for stopping slant routes late. And I'm talking about curl flats, or what's it called? Cloud flats without zone drops. So there's no zone drops on right now. Again, we'll get the zone drops later, but again, I'll show you guys right here what I mean. So let's come out and I'll play like verticals where we have these little short corner outs. Again, there's always multiple ways to defend certain plays, but again, this is more just kind of the basics of what each zone does for certain plays. So here, again, if someone's calling you with like 10-yard corner routes or something like that, that's what the clouds are going to be here for, is defending these sidelines, defending the 10, 15-yard routes on the sidelines. Same thing on the other side as well. So we do something like this. The cloud might come down a little late, but and that's where we would end up using zone drops, which again we'll get to later. But again, the cloud flat again is supposed to defend these sidelines, and it'll do a solid job versus most corner routes. So again, if someone's killing you with corner routes, even short crossers, short posts, they're killing you late with them. Again, make sure to utilize cloud flats on the field. Now let's kind of go over the difference between, a cloud flat and a soft squat. So a soft squat will kind of man up. So if there's nobody else running to the side of the soft squat, so the soft squat is going to kind of man up to, it's the nearest defender. But if there's multiple receivers in the area, then they'll kind of play like a cloud flat. So here, let me run something like this. So you see how it's going to kind of man up, and that's because that there's no flat or any other receiver running to that area of the field. So that soft squat is just going to man up. And let me go to bunch. This will be even a better example of kind of breaking down the difference between a soft squat and a cloud flat. So right here, we're just going to use a cloud flat. And again, the cloud flat's going to stay towards the sideline. And it's not going to man up. His responsibility is not to man up to the guy again. It's just to solely play the sideline. Cloud flat solely plays the sideline. So, again, last time it was a cloud flat. Now let's change it to a soft squat. Now, usually the soft squat will man up. So we do something like this. Again, the soft squat can play like a cloud, depending on if there's any other receivers coming in the area or not. So again, here it should man up because there's no other receivers coming into the area of the soft squat. So again, it's gonna match. It's gonna play. It's gonna be basically the lane man coverage here. But you know the soft squat will end up playing like a cloud if there is another receiver that comes into this area. So now we are gonna run, you know, another receiver over there or another halfback over there. So now it's gonna play like a cloud because the soft squat says, okay, shit, you know, there's another guy, you know, coming towards the sideline. So again, his number one responsibility is still gonna be those sidelines, just like the cloud. But if there is no other, if there's no threat attacking that silence, he's just gonna man up to like an in route. So again, a soft squat can kind of be like a 2-for-1. But the soft squat can have its weaknesses as well. You know, a top player, you know, can manipulate a soft squat and kind of just get, you know, a sideline pass super open because the soft squat will kind of man up to something underneath. But again, that's kind of beyond the scope of this course. But again, for now, just think of soft squats as kind of like a 2-for-1 zone, whereas it can play, you know, the sidelines and it can man up to the solo receiver if, you know, there's no other zone running in the area. Now, again, now it's kind of distinguished between like a vert hook and a mid read. And again, most pro players do not use mid reads because mid reads can be extremely unpredictable, and then they just end up sitting in the middle of the field like a hook zone. Again, the best two hook zones are gonna be, or the best yellow zones are gonna be a bluff blitz 3-rec or a vert hook. Hook zones. Let's see if I can get a hook zone. Sometimes hard to get them, but hook zones are really, really pointless to have in the field. Again, if you can, you'd always utilize a vert hook over a hook zone, as the hook zone is going to kind of stand in one area of the field and not move. So a hook zone will just kind of stand right here and not do anything. It will just stand in this 1 to 2 yard radius on the field, and it's not going to follow any routes really. Again, like whereas with a vert hooks have the potential to they're actually going to play their area too. So if you put a vert hook right here to stop like a crow route, so say someone is, you know, doing a bunch of crow routes right in the middle of the seam, a vert hook is actually going to sit there and play it. Whereas, you know, sometimes a hook curl can kind of drift. And I'll show you guys what I mean. So again, I can only get this hook curl on my safety. Do something like this. So again, the hook curl is not always going to kind of do what you want it to do. Again, then let me get rid of that. Deep blue to give a better example. So do something like this. Again, this should work. But a lot of times the hook curl can kind of get manipulated by routes around it, so it's not gonna always play in, like, it usually stays in this 1 to 2 yard area, but it can kind of drift around into areas you don't want it to, based on receivers coming in its area. So see what I mean here. And again, here I kind of played, it kind of gets tricked by the other receiver coming in its area. And let me get rid of that. I don't know why I had this kind of inside quarter. So let me do something like this. Yeah, this would be easier to show in a game, and I am going to have a gameplay clip at the end here, or a little gameplay video where you can see But like, see that like the hook curl is not gonna even, you know, really, really match onto that guy, you know. Whereas a vert hook would be a little bit smarter and say, okay, shit, you know, there's no other guy running deep here, so the vertical hook would kind of man up. Whereas a hook curl, again, it's just gonna play its little 1 to 2 yard radius, and you know, hook curls are just not good. Do not try to avoid using hook curls at all cost. There's much better yellow zones. You know, mid reads and hook curls are the most pointless, or I would say the hook curl is the most pointless hook zone because again, it's really not going to guard too much at all. Um, so basically, the vert hook does the job of the hook curl, but the vert hook is just a little bit smarter, and it can cover more ground, depending on, like it can run with the seam, or it can kind of sit on like a curl underneath. So sometimes, yeah, even the vert hooks, you know, they're not the greatest either, but they're still a bit better than the hook curls, because the vert hooks have a little bit more movement in them, whereas they can kind of bait routes and then kind of get back to their original zone. Whereas, you know, a hook curl, again, it's just gonna sit in 1 to 2 yard, a 1 to 2 yard radius, and just kind of not really do much. So do not use hook curls. That's the moral of the story here. See, at least the vert hook, it can kind of play like a little purple here. So again, the vert hook will kind of come out and bait the flat, and then it'll get back over the mill to play like a hook curl, or I mean to play like a curl route, or like a, you know, a deep in route coming across the field. So the vert hooks just have better. They're gonna cover a little bit more ground than a hook curl, and it's still gonna have the same role of a hook curl, which is the guard, like, you know, kind of like a curl route over the middle of the field. But the vert hooks can kind of bait a little bit while still playing, you know, curls and stuff over the middle of the field. So again, always go with vert hooks over hook curls. And I will say, guys, this is one of the tougher parts to go over in this course because, again, even for someone like me that's been playing forever, you know, the zones can sometimes be unpredictable. They're not, you know, it doesn't matter how long you've been playing Madden for, man. The zones are going to kind of catch you off guard sometimes with some of the stuff they do every now and then. So, but now let's kind of go over a mid read. And again, the mid read is supposed to guard, you know, seam streaks and post routes over the middle of the field. They're supposed to man up to them. But they don't always do that. Again, the mid reads are extremely unpredictable, so pro players tend to not use them too much. But I would say a mid read is something to go into practice mode and kind of test out to see if it does happen to play, you know, a particular post route or a particular, you know, maybe seam streak that you're having trouble with. But again, mid reads can be really unpredictable from formation to formation. So again, the mid read is supposed to guard anything over the middle of the field and kind of match to it. So let's see if it matches to the seam streak here. Again, sometimes it will, sometimes it won't. Again, see there, that time it kind of it baited the seam streak and then came back down on the deep in route over the middle of the field. So it did a solid job there. But again, this is gonna vary from formation to formation. So that's why even at the highest level, you know, it's kind of frustrating to kind of use these mid reads because we don't really know exactly what it's gonna do. It's really unpredictable. Again, it's supposed to guard deep. It's supposed to guard anything over the middle and match to it. But sometimes it just doesn't do that, and it'll just kind of sit in the middle and do nothing. So let me show an example of that. So again, moral of the story so far is, you know, if you had the choice, vert hooks are probably the best, your best bet for, you know, guarding anything over the middle of the field. So again, let's do something like a something like this. So again, the mid read, again, it's supposed to match the routes over the middle of the field, and it just doesn't do that. It just sits there. I don't know why. I can't explain it. But again, for specific routes over the middle of the field, it just doesn't. The mid reads do not work how they're supposed to work. So again, that's why most players tend to shy away from using mid reads. But so again, now let's kind of transition to like bluff blitz 3-recs. I think these are the best. Either these or the vert hooks are the best. Are the best hook zones, because this 3-rec will usually carry a drag route from sideline to sideline. So I'm gonna do it here, and we might have to put the zone drops onto 5 for this 3-rec. Actually, see how it kind of like, at least the 3-rec. Look at how much ground it just guarded. So let me shade the 3-rec underneath. So and that's what's great about the 3-rec. I think these one of the best CPU zones because they actually do guard a good amount of ground. Whereas most CPU zones they kind of just stay in a 1 to 2 yard radius. You know this 3-rec can play from sideline to sideline. So you know that again here. I'm shading underneath. And as you can see, it's going to kind of come down and kind of bait it for a little bit and then go back towards the middle of the field. So the 3-rec, that's, you know, that's again is going to be one of the best, you know, CPU zones. It's going to be one of the zones that guard the most ground for a CPU defender. You know, it kind of just, again, it started off here on the left sideline, kind of goes, it's going deep a little bit. Again, I'm shading underneath, but then it kind of sees the drag and it'll kind of come down and bait it for just a little bit. So again, if you're just signing on what hook zones to put in the field, you know, if you want to guard something like a curl, I would use like a vert hook. So yeah, if someone's like doing this, like just putting curls and stuff over the middle of the field, I would utilize the vert hook. You know, the vert hook's usually going to do a good job of taking these away. Again, it's just going to sit right underneath. Now, again, this vert hook is going to be a little weak, though, versus like a drag route. Even if you shade underneath, it's not going to play it too well. So, here, let me shade underneath. See, and again, it just doesn't really bait the drag at all. The vert hook just kind of sits. It's not going to really follow the drag route much. So again, if you're having trouble with curls in the middle, I would use vert hooks. If you're trying to guard drag routes, I would definitely utilize a 3-rec. So I would even go to the coaching adjustments here. So if someone's really killing you with drags, put your hooks on 5. Let me get a safety. Get your safeties in that outside linebacker. The safeties will obviously guard more area. Or let's see, what playbook am I in? Oh no, I cannot do that in this playbook. But again, if you have the option to, get your safeties in that linebacker. And again, notice how that last hook zone played, or that vert hook played. So now let's use a 3-rec instead. Again, to utilize the 3-rec, you want to hit right on the D-pad. You go to select defender, and in this case it'll be P. Smith, and then we just hit bluff blitz. And again, we have our coaching adjustments set to 5 for these drag routes. Again, I want you to watch how much ground it just guarded. Like, I feel like that's amazing for a CPU defender. Again, the CPU usually does not guard that much ground. So again, if someone's really killing you with these drag routes, make sure to utilize these 5-yard 3-recs, because they will do a good job of really baiting the drag from almost the entire middle of the field until it reaches the the sideline. So again, 3RX phenomenal versus drags, 4 hooks phenomenal versus curl routes over the middle of the field. Now, again, for defending corner routes, you want to use more cloud flats. Whereas the purples aren't going to do a great job of getting to the sideline in time versus corner routes. Same thing versus crossers. So if you're zone dropping your clouds, you definitely want to, if someone's coming in with crossing routes, you want to zone drop clouds instead of purples, because again, the cloud's main responsibility is to defend that sideline as quick and get there as quick as possible. Whereas, the purple is supposed to defend the sideline, but again, it's right in the name, curl flat. It's more looking to defend, a curl route on the outside, not so much as follow a corner route all the way out. It can, but it won't always get there in time for the corner route. So, again, versus corner routes, use cloud flats. Whereas outside curls, utilize purples. See here, I'll do a curl flat concept here. Actually, no, I can just make it with my hot routes. Alright, let's get rid of that cloud. As you can see here, the purple is just going to sit there. He's just going to sit right on that outside curl route. Now let's do it with a cloud flat instead. Now the cloud flat can still do a solid job, but it's not going to sit on it like a purple would. Okay, let's do that again. And as you can see, the cloud flat kind of drifts outside of the curl, because again, the cloud flat's main responsibility is to guard that sideline as quick as possible. Again, it really wants to get to the sideline for corner routes. Not as much a curl, whereas a curl, it's still on the outside, but the curl again stops. Whereas, a corner route's going to keep running towards the outside, towards the sideline, whereas a curl is not going to go all the way towards the sideline. And again, the cloud flat wants to get to the sideline as quick as possible. So as you can see here, again, this was a cloud. So versus corner routes, you want to use clouds. Versus outside curl routes, you want to utilize purples. Now, what's kind of distinguish the difference between an outside third and an outside quarter? Again, these outside quarters are going to be really more effective for like outside corner routes and outside crossing routes. Whereas something like an outside third, the outside thirds are going to gravitate a little bit more towards the middle of the field, whereas an outside quarters is strictly going to play the outside, or are supposed to. In this particular Madden, outside quarters and outside thirds are not great. They don't do a great job of protecting that sideline versus crossers. They can kind of just sit there in no man's land. So again, outside quarters, outside thirds. This will kind of vary from Madden to Madden. Again, though, but the outside quarter is supposed to get to that sideline as quick as possible. Again, they're not great in this man, so they don't always do that. But something like an outside third is going to play a little bit more towards the middle. They're not going to play that sideline as aggressive. Go PA kind of go. And see, that's what I mean right here. The outside third is more. It's not going to play those sidelines nearly as aggressive as an outside quarter. Again, it's more looking to protect like the middle to sideline portion of the field. Again, you see how the outside quarter was kind of just kind of sticking to outside quarter was kind of sticking to this crossing route, whereas at least in the area, whereas the outside third is, again, it's more playing that middle to sideline portion, whereas the outside quarter is a lot more aggressive towards the sideline. And here we'll go back to the outside quarter. And as you're going to see, like, again, the outside quarter is not going to run deep with that streak again. It knows that its responsibility is more of the silence, but again, the outside quarters are not too good in Madden 21. Again, their role is to play the silence aggressively, but they do not always do that. So, again, that will kind of lead us into our next section here on utilizing zone drops, because, again, these outside cornerbacks, these outside quarters are not great versus crossers like they should be, so we have to kind of utilize, zone drop, flats, and purples to play this sideline. And here I'll kind of go over, these seam flats, or these quarter flats or seam flats. Again, I hate to teach about this because, again, they're so unpredictable, and this will really vary from Madden to Madden, and they're really tricky. The seam flats, are really unpredictable, so this is a really hard thing to teach. There's so many rules to it. There's so many what if this guy does this, or it depends on this, or it depends on that. There's so many of those scenarios, so again, it's really hard to kind of teach what exactly a seam flat's going to do, because, again, a lot of the pro players usually tend to stay away from seam flats because they are unpredictable, but other pro players do like to use seam flats because they are unpredictable, and unpredictable can kind of throw off the offense sometimes. So let me see if I can. So what seam flats are supposed to do is they're supposed to run with they're supposed to run down this. They're supposed to man up the seams, like man up the seam streaks. But again, they don't always do that. So here, utilize seam flats. Again, it says it right in the name, seam flats. Usually they're supposed to man up to the seams. But see, sometimes they just don't do that, and that's why, though, some pro players do like using these seam flats, is because of the unpredictability of them. As you can see here, obviously it did not play the seam flat at all, but I will say the seam flats are kind of like a matching zone, whereas if there's nobody in the area here, besides this in route, the seam flat will usually man up to this in route. Again, it can be unpredictable, but as you saw here, I was looking to man up on this in route, but it said, okay, my responsibility is still the sideline, so I got to get back to the sideline. Whereas, like, a purple is not going to play this aggressive inside on an in route. Again, now let me put a purple here instead. Again, the purple is going to play more towards the outside. That's not going to, like, man up. Yeah, see, it's not going to, like, man up to that end route. Whereas a seam flat, again, is more of a matching zone, where it has that kind of, delayed man coverage concept, like we talked about in match earlier. And there's one of those hook curls. And I can go over that after, but again, say if you do not have, like, a flat, if you do something like this, usually a seam flat can kind of man up on an in route, or it kind of did for a little bit. It followed for a little bit, whereas, like, a purple or a cloud is not going to do that. But a seam flat does have the potential to kind of, man up and follow a route if there's no other, zones attacking the sideline. So again, if someone is utilizing a lot of, in routes, and they're not putting any other routes on this portion of the field, then you can utilize seam flats to kind of, take the in routes away for a little bit. Or if you just want the flexibility of the seam flat to kind of play both, like in an in route and maybe like a corner route, you can do that as well. But again, just be warned that the seam flats, there's so many rules to them, and even if you've been playing at a high level for a long time, nobody really knows exactly what the seam flats are gonna do. Sometimes they can just man up to different people, so be cautious of that. Again, they're really unpredictable. Again, let's go to this hook curl, and I kind of just want to show you guys how bad hook curls are and why. Do not use them. Please do not use them. So the hook curls, they're really just gonna sit. They're not gonna follow any routes. They barely guard curls. They barely guard curl routes over the middle of the field. You'll be lucky. Again, it just kind of sits there. It baits for like a second, but it's gonna go right back to the middle of the field, or to where the hook curl originally was. So as you can see, unlike a 3-rec, the 3-rec is usually going to follow. A hook curl is not. And again, even if you're looking to defend a curl route, the hook curls aren't always, they just don't do that. They don't really even sense that there's a freaking like look at it. What is it doing? The hook curl just guarded nobody. So again, these hook curls, please do not use hook curls. They really do not do anything. Try to avoid using hook curls at all costs. Use root hooks. And use bluff blitz 3-recs. If you're using these routes over the middle of the field, or utilizing yellow zones over the middle of the field. So again, kind of a quick recap. Clouds versus purples. Again, you want to use clouds for defending corner routes, purples for defending outside curls, and then outside third versus an outside quarter. So if you're really looking to defend, crossing routes or a deep corner route, you might want to use an outside quarter, or an outside third. Whereas an outside third, it's still gonna protect the middle sideline portions, but it's not gonna play those sidelines super aggressive. Whereas, and then we got the hooks or the yellow zones. So again, do not utilize hook curls. Try to avoid using them at all costs. Again, mid reads. Again, you can mess with them and see if they guard a particular post route. But again, mid reads are extremely unpredictable. And can be really unreliable and can kind of just sit in a certain spot on the field and not really do too much. So again, I tend to use root hooks for defending like hook curls and like deep in routes over the middle field, or I'll use bluff blitz 3-rec on 5 yards on the coaching adjustments to defend like drags and in routes underneath